The moment I walked into that break room and saw 3 developers huddled around a crumpled piece of paper, my pay stub, I knew my life was about to change forever. What I did not know was that this betrayal would become the spark that ignited a salary transparency revolution, affecting over 100,000 professionals. My name is Maya Ellison, and this is the story of how workplace sabotage became my greatest victory. The Austin tech scene in 2023 was suffocating. Every startup claimed to be disrupting something, but most were just recycling the same toxic bro culture with a fresh coat of kombucha and ping pong tables. I worked at NextGen Analytics, a company that prided itself on innovation, while systematically undervaluing anyone who was not a 20-something white male with a computer science degree from Stanford. I should have seen it coming. The signs were everywhere. Rachel Martinez had been my coworker for 18 months. And in that time, she had perfected the art of passive-aggressive warfare. She was the type of person who would smile sweetly while undermining everything you said in meetings. The type who would accidentally leave you off important email chains. The type who made jokes about how I was too assertive whenever I advocated for my ideas or pushed back against questionable decisions. But I never imagined she would cross this line. It was a Tuesday morning in March when my world exploded. I had arrived early as usual, grabbing my coffee before the office filled with the usual chaos of stand-up meetings and keyboard clicking. I walked into the break room to refill my mug, and there they were. 3 developers, hunched over the communal printer like vultures over roadkill. The paper in their hands was familiar. Too familiar. My pay stub, highlighted in neon yellow. Critical numbers circled in red ink. My stomach dropped to the floor as their whispered conversation reached my ears. Can you believe she makes more than we do? Seriously, what does she even contribute? This is completely unfair. Time seemed to freeze. The coffee mug slipped from my hand, shattering against the tile floor with a crash that made all 3 heads turn toward me. The looks on their faces, a mixture of guilt, defiance, and cruel satisfaction, told me everything I needed to know. This was not an accident. This was calculated. This was war. I bent down to pick up the ceramic pieces, my hands shaking with a rage so pure and white-hot that I thought I might combust right there on the break room floor. The developers scattered like cockroaches when the lights come on. But the damage was done. Rachel appeared in the doorway moments later, her expression a masterpiece of fake concern. Oh my goodness, Maya. Are you okay? What happened? The audacity was breathtaking. She stood there, feigning innocence, when we both knew exactly what had happened. She had deliberately left my confidential pay information on the printer, where anyone could see it. She had violated my privacy, my trust, and my dignity with surgical precision. You know exactly what happened, I said, my voice barely above a whisper but loaded with enough venom to kill a horse. She tilted her head, eyes wide with manufactured confusion. I have no idea what you mean. That was the moment I realized that Rachel Martinez had just made the biggest mistake of her career. She thought she was exposing me. She thought she was turning my colleagues against me. She thought she was putting me in my place. She had no idea she had just lit the fuse on a bomb that would blow up the entire system. The rest of that day was torture. Word spread through the office like wildfire. I could feel the stares, hear the whispered conversations that stopped abruptly when I walked by. Some people looked at me with resentment. Others with curiosity. A few with something that looked almost like respect. But it was the resentment that hurt the most. Yes, I made more money than those 3 developers. Significantly more. And there was a very good reason for that. I had built our entire data science infrastructure from scratch. When I joined NextGen Analytics 2 years earlier, their data analysis was being done in Excel spreadsheets by interns. I had architected, coded, and implemented a machine learning system that increased their fraud detection accuracy by 300%. I held 2 patents on algorithms that were now generating millions in licensing revenue for the company. I had an advanced degree in data science from MIT. I had 5 years of experience at Fortune 500 companies. I had negotiated my salary based on the value I brought to the table, and I had delivered on every single promise I made during that negotiation. But none of that mattered to the people who saw that pay stub. All they saw was a number that was bigger than theirs, and all they felt was anger. The irony was suffocating. These were the same people who rolled their eyes when I talked about pay equity. The same people who dismissed conversations about gender discrimination as playing the victim card. The same people who insisted that meritocracy was alive and well in tech. But the moment they saw concrete evidence that someone was making more money than them, suddenly inequality was a problem worth discussing. I went home that night feeling like I had been run over by a truck. I sat in my apartment, staring at the wall, trying to process what had happened. The betrayal, the humiliation, the casual cruelty of it all. And then somewhere around midnight, the anger transformed into something else. Clarity. I called Zara Okafor the next morning. Zara had been my study partner in graduate school, a brilliant back-end developer who could build systems that made other programmers weep with envy. She was also chronically underpaid, despite being one of the most talented engineers I had ever met. "You will not believe what happened to me yesterday," I said without preamble. I told her everything. The pay stub. The developers. Rachel's smug expression. The whispered conversations and meaningful glances that had followed me around the office like a dark cloud. Zara listened in silence until I finished, and then she said something that changed everything. "You know what the real problem is? It is not that they are angry you make more money. It is that they have no idea how to ask for more themselves." She was right. Absolutely, devastatingly right. The tech industry was built on secrecy. Companies actively discouraged salary discussions. People had no idea what their market value was, what their colleagues were earning, or how to negotiate effectively. Information was power, and power was concentrated in the hands of the people who already had it. "We should fix this," Zara said. "What do you mean?" "I mean we should build something. An app. A platform. Something that gives people the information they need to fight back." The idea hit me like lightning. Not just a salary-sharing platform, something bigger. Something revolutionary. Something that would tear down the walls of secrecy that kept working people in the dark about their own worth. We spent the weekend mapping out the concept. EquiPay would be more than just another Glassdoor clone. It would be a comprehensive salary transparency platform where verified professionals could share detailed compensation packages, benefits information, negotiation strategies, and career progression data. No vague ranges. No sanitized corporate speak. Just real numbers from real people, verified through a sophisticated authentication system that would prevent fake entries while protecting user anonymity. Zara quit her job the following Monday. I gave my notice on Tuesday. Rachel looked absolutely stunned when I announced my departure in the team meeting. Her mouth actually fell open, like she could not compute what was happening. "But, where are you going?" she asked. "I am starting my own company," I said, looking directly at her. "Thank you for the inspiration." The next 3 months were a blur of 18-hour days, energy drinks, and code that seemed to write itself. Zara handled the back-end architecture, while I focused on data analytics and user experience. We worked out of my apartment, surviving on takeout and pure determination. The beta version of EquiPay launched in June with 3 partner companies willing to let us test the platform with their employees. We had modest expectations, maybe 100 entries if we were lucky. We got 847 entries in the first 2 weeks. The data was shocking. Not surprising, but shocking in its stark, undeniable clarity. Women were making an average of 23% less than men in comparable roles. Women of color were making 25 to 40% less than their white male counterparts. The disparities were not subtle. They were not explainable by experience or qualifications. They were systematic, deliberate, and infuriating. But the most powerful part was not the aggregate data. It was the individual stories. I found out my male colleague with less experience makes $30K more than me for the same job title. I have been at this company for 5 years and gotten 2% raises. New hires are coming in at salaries 40% higher than mine. I was told there was no budget for raises. Then I saw on EquiPay that they gave the guy who sits next to me a $25K increase last month. These were not abstract statistics. These were real people discovering that they had been systematically undervalued and lied to. And they were furious. I compiled the most egregious examples into an anonymized data visualization, and posted it to LinkedIn with a simple caption. Transparency is not the enemy. Silence is. The post went viral within hours. Thousands of shares. Hundreds of comments ranging from outrage to gratitude to corporate damage control. My inbox exploded with messages from journalists, investors, and working professionals who wanted to know more. TechCrunch picked up the story. Then Fast Company. Then CNN. Within a week, we had 50,000 users. Within a month, we had venture capitalists calling. But I was not interested in taking money from the same Silicon Valley bros who had created this problem in the first place. Instead, we bootstrapped using the premium features we had built into the platform. Companies could pay for custom salary equity audits. Individuals could access advanced negotiation tools and personalized market analysis for a small monthly fee. The money started rolling in almost immediately. By September, EquiPay had 75,000 users across 6 industries. We had partnered with labor lawyers to provide legal resources for people dealing with pay discrimination. We had launched negotiation workshops that were booked solid for months in advance. We had built custom analytics tools that helped mid-sized companies identify and fix pay gaps before they became legal liabilities. And then came the moment I had been waiting for. It was a Thursday afternoon in October when I opened my email and saw a familiar name in the job applications folder. Rachel Martinez had applied to be our Director of Community Outreach. I stared at the screen for a full minute, convinced I was hallucinating. But there it was, in black and white. Her resume, her cover letter, her carefully crafted LinkedIn profile emphasizing her passion for workplace equality and transparency. The cover letter was a masterpiece of irony. Dear hiring team, it began. I have always been passionate about transparency and ethics in the workplace. Throughout my career, I have witnessed firsthand how lack of communication and information sharing can create toxic work environments and perpetuate inequality. She went on to describe her extensive experience in community building and conflict resolution, and her deep commitment to creating fair and equitable workplaces for all employees. The audacity was breathtaking. This was the same person who had deliberately leaked my private financial information to stir up workplace drama. The same person who had spent months undermining me with passive-aggressive comments and exclusionary behavior. The same person who had tried to turn my success into a weapon against me. And now she wanted to work for the company I had built in response to her betrayal. She had even name-dropped me in the cover letter, describing how she had been inspired by Maya Ellison's innovative approach to workplace transparency, and how she had learned so much from observing her leadership style and technical expertise. The woman had no idea that her application was landing directly in my inbox. I called Zara immediately. You will not believe this, I said, and read the entire cover letter out loud. Zara was quiet for a long moment, and then she started laughing. Not just chuckling, full body can't breathe, tears streaming down her face laughing. She applied to work for you, she gasped between laughs. The woman who tried to sabotage you is now asking you for a job. What should I do? Are you seriously asking me that question? She was right. There was only one possible response. I opened the application system and marked Rachel's file with a single word, rejected. In the notes section I wrote, candidate demonstrates a history of unethical behavior regarding confidential salary information, not aligned with company values of genuine transparency and professional integrity. But I was not done. I spent the next hour crafting a response email that I would never send, but that felt incredibly satisfying to write. It detailed exactly why her application was being rejected, complete with specific examples of her past behavior, and a thorough explanation of how those actions directly contradicted everything EquiPay stood for. In the end, I deleted the draft and sent a standard rejection email instead. Professional, polite, and completely devastating in its brevity. Thank you for your interest in EquiPay. After careful consideration, we have decided to move forward with other candidates who better align with our company values and mission. We wish you the best in your job search. I never heard back from her. EquiPay continued to grow at an incredible pace. By December, we had over 100,000 users and had expanded into consulting, legal partnerships, and corporate training programs. Fast Company featured us in their Startups That Are Actually Making a Difference issue. Harvard Business Review published a case study on our platform. I was invited to speak at conferences about the future of workplace transparency. The app had become more than just a salary-sharing platform. It had become a movement. But the most satisfying part was not the media coverage or the revenue growth or the industry recognition. It was the messages I received every day from people whose lives had been changed by the information they found on our platform. I used EquiPay data to negotiate a 40% salary increase. I discovered I was being severely underpaid and found a new job that values my skills appropriately. Your platform helped me realize I was not crazy. There really was systematic bias at my company. I finally had the evidence I needed to file a discrimination complaint. These were real people with real victories, and they had all started with the same thing that had launched my journey. The revelation that information is power, and power should not be hoarded by the people who already have it. Through industry connections, I heard that Rachel had eventually gotten a small raise at NextGen Analytics. Nothing substantial, but enough to keep her from looking for other opportunities. The irony was perfect. Her salary bump had not come from her attempted sabotage, or her networking skills, or her passive-aggressive office politics. It had come from the data that EquiPay users had shared about her company. Other employees had used our platform to negotiate better compensation packages, and management had been forced to make market adjustments to retain talent. Rachel had benefited from the very thing she had tried to weaponize against me. The thought made me smile every time I checked our user statistics and saw the numbers climbing higher. Over 100,000 professionals now had access to the salary information they needed to advocate for themselves. Thousands of companies had been forced to confront and correct pay disparities. Millions of dollars in additional compensation had been negotiated by people who finally understood their market value. All because one bitter coworker had thought she could humiliate me by exposing my salary. I kept a printed copy of that original pay stub in my office, framed next to our first TechCrunch article. It served as a daily reminder that our greatest victories often come from our most painful defeats. Every morning when I walked into our Austin headquarters, a sleek space in the heart of the tech district, not far from my old office at NextGen Analytics, I thought about that moment in the break room. The shame I had felt, the anger that had consumed me, the determination that had transformed everything. Rachel Martinez had intended to destroy me. Instead, she had given me the greatest gift of my career. She had shown me exactly what needed to be fixed in the world, and she had provided the motivation I needed to fix it. I often wondered if she realized the role she had played in creating EquiPay. If she understood that her cruel little prank had sparked a revolution that was reshaping entire industries. If she ever connected the dots between her deliberate betrayal and my eventual success. I suspected she did. The application to work for us suggested a level of self-awareness that was both pathetic and hilarious. She had to know who was behind the company. She had to realize the irony of asking for a job from the person she had tried to sabotage. And yet she had applied anyway, probably assuming that I would be professional enough to separate personal grievances from business decisions. She was wrong about that. Some actions have consequences that extend far beyond the moment they occur. Some betrayals are so calculated, so deliberately cruel, that they deserve to be remembered and acted upon. Rachel Martinez had made a choice in that break room. She had chosen cruelty over kindness, sabotage over support, destruction over collaboration. I had made a different choice. I had chosen to build something better. The success of EquiPay was not revenge, exactly. Revenge implies a desire to hurt someone else. What I had created was something much more powerful. A system that made Rachel's kind of workplace sabotage impossible. In a world where salary information is transparent and accessible, no one can use pay disparities as weapons against their colleagues. In a world where everyone has access to market data and negotiation resources, the playing field is finally level. Rachel could not leak my pay stub to stir up resentment anymore, because everyone already knew what everyone else was making. The information that had once been a source of power and manipulation was now freely available to anyone who needed it. That was true victory. Not just beating Rachel, but building a world where future Rachels could not exist. As I write this, Equipay has grown beyond anything I could have imagined in those early days. We have offices in 6 cities, partnerships with major corporations, and a user base that spans dozens of industries and multiple countries. We have helped thousands of people negotiate better salaries, identify pay discrimination, and build more equitable workplaces. But none of it would have happened without that moment of betrayal in the break room. Rachel Martinez thought she was exposing me. Instead, she exposed herself, and the entire broken system that allowed people like her to thrive. She gave me humiliation, and I turned it into revolution. She gave me pain, and I turned it into purpose. She gave me betrayal, and I turned it into the foundation of something beautiful. Every time I check our download numbers, every time I read a success story from one of our users, every time I see another company implement salary transparency policies because of pressure from our community, I think the same thing. Thank you for printing my pay stub, Rachel. You helped us all get paid. And that is a legacy I am proud to own. If this story of transformation and triumph resonated with you, please subscribe to our channel for more inspiring tales of turning workplace challenges into career victories. Your support helps us share these powerful stories of resilience, innovation, and success with others who need to hear them. Hit that subscribe button and join our community of professionals who refuse to let setbacks define their futures.